For 30 years, I have plotted to bring down the party. I was sick in mind and body.
I got stuff all over my desk. I got books all over my desk. I got 1984 over here, which is going to be part of our conversation because I was majorly black-pilled last week after I read that, and I did a stream about it, and I talked about how the book goes into the concepts of the tiered society that we live in that is not just true of modern times, but is true of all human civilizations. The inner party, the outer party, and the proletariat. That general structure exists across all civilizations, across all times, and that structure matters. Like you actually understanding how it works, and that it's an intentional structure, and that there are people who want to keep it that way. Understanding that is important. Obviously, the other parts of 1984, where it talks about censorship and thought police, doublethink, wrongthink, totalitarian governments, propaganda, that's all kind of bread and butter stuff that you as a conservative who's trying to understand what the truth actually is in this world, even though it's a book of fiction, it's not fiction. It really isn't. It really is a accurate capturing of how evil occupies itself in the institutions of men, particularly governments, and uses them as an instrument to bring about Satan's rule on earth. That's what the book is about. Now, the book doesn't approach it from a spiritual lens, but the protagonist actually is a confessed agnostic or atheist when he's questioned towards the end of the book when he's being tortured if he believes in God or not. One of the big epiphanies for you reading that book as a Christian should be this man eventually breaks. He eventually breaks, turns on the people that he loves, turns on the human race, and starts confessing to crimes he did not commit, starts turning in other people. Uh, and part of that is because he doesn't believe in a universal truth that is decreed by God. We as Christians obviously do. We do believe that there are eternal truths in this world, and those are defined by God. They're not defined by college professors, and they're not defined by your parents. They're not defined by the news, and they're not defined by the government. The eternal truths are defined in this text right here by the man who died on this right here. So 1984, I read that last week, and 300 pages in one day, cover to cover. And I was really despondent afterwards because when it talks about war and it talks about how the perpetual ongoing wars are, they're not about trying to go and install democracy in what other country. They're not even necessarily about annexing new territories, trying to expand your empire, that kind of stuff. It's much more about the people who have power wanting to stay in power and trying to keep the proletariat, the worker bee class, continually at the teat of the elites. asking for permission if they can live, asking for permission if they can eat and buy a home and reproduce and get married and have jobs. That's the general nature of war and the general nature of the ruling party. So, summarized, the war part is regards to we live in an age where mechanization, mechanical goods, the industrial revolution, especially that then took off into the digital revolution and the internet age, and now ushering in artificial intelligence, we've come to a point, and we actually got there a long time ago with the industrial age, that the general population are now producing the goods we need to survive, the food, the shelter, the water, the healthcare, all that. There is a surplus of that. There's no shortage of food. There's no shortage of ability to create homes for people, to have heat and cooling in those homes. There's no shortage of medical care for people. And in fact, it's not just that there's not a shortage, like we're at equilibrium. If things were left to their natural pace, we, the general people, not the super uber elite, but we, the general people, would actually start to accrue resources to the extent that we begin to have a surplus. The general population would start to accumulate savings in their bank accounts to the tune of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions of dollars. And within your home, you would start to accumulate a surplus of food, and you would start to have the ability to start trading with your community, the excess things that you have but don't need, to accumulate the things you do and upgrade your living conditions and upgrade your living space. You could have a farm, you could have animals, you could become fully self-sufficient. Imagine if you live in a neighborhood of 100 people and suddenly every single one of you got $50,000. And this wasn't like because the government taxed everybody and redistributed the income. It's more like the opposite. Imagine that none of you had to pay the taxes you're currently paying. In my case, 40% of my income. Suddenly, I'm sitting around having tens of thousands of extra dollars every single year. And so imagine if that's happening in your neighborhood across 100 homes. Well, suddenly just your one little neighborhood has millions of dollars of wealth in a very quick period of time. If your neighborhood starts accumulating millions of dollars of wealth, think a little bit larger than that and think out into maybe your county or your city, your community. What happens is your local communities actually start to get very, very wealthy, and they can really sustain themselves. They don't need the state government. They don't need the federal government to come in and pave roads for them. They don't need them to come in and build the schools and decide the curriculum of the schools. They don't need the government to be in their lives every single day, 24 hours a day, if we actually had the resources to take care of ourselves locally. This is a substantial problem because if the government can't be in our lives, then they don't get to tell us how to live and what to believe and how to prioritize our time. And if they want the resources to go do things they want, such as go to war to fight whatever other superpower or extract the resources from some other part of the world, then they need the resources we're accumulating at record speed. They need to take those from us. And for two purposes. One, to go and achieve their objectives, but more importantly, two, to not allow us to accumulate the resources to the point where we no longer need them. And this is why you see very high taxation and ongoing, perpetual, never-ending war. Because war is literally taking resources, you take them from the people, and you burn them up. You literally just burn them up. You blow up bombs, you test a bunch of bombs before you go drop them on other people. All of the military go out and they shoot their guns and they practice and they burn through tons of ammo. We create a bunch of weapons that we then sell to other nations so that they can do the same thing. The war engine, the military-industrial complex, it is in place to make sure that the American people never actually accumulate the resources they need to no longer need the government. That's what the military industrial complex serves to accomplish. So when you realize that these wars are intentional and that they're not ever going to end because they're actually a tool of the people in charge, it gets a little discouraging because at every era of American history, not every, but like for the last, I don't know, 150 years or something, long past any of us being alive, long past our parents and grandparents being alive, we have been told that we have to come together to fight this war for the nation. World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Korea, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Ukraine, help out Israel with all of their wars. And we're told that we have to do this or else something bad is going to happen to our nation. We are living in a perpetual state of fear that says, if you guys aren't willing to give us 40% of your money and possibly sacrifice your children for this cause, then hey, America might just go under. Remember Pearl Harbor happened? The Japanese are going to come and occupy our land or something like that. I think right now they're trying to tell us that if we don't spend $250 billion in Ukraine, then Putin is going to go on a global rampage and take over the world. We were told in World War II, if we don't get involved, then Hitler is going to go on a global rampage and take over the world. Okay, so this is the tactic that they have used. They're going to keep using. It's not going to change. These wars are going to continue to happen. They're all going to be engineered, intentional, allowed to happen, orchestrated, however you want to put it. And the taxation to pay for them is never going to stop. And so that prohibits us from ever accumulating the necessary resources to do anything about it. And so as I realized that from reading 1984, that was pretty discouraging because it's like it doesn't matter what president you put into the Oval Office. It doesn't matter what Congress members are sitting there in the Senate, in the House. It doesn't matter what governors are running the states. This is going to be the status quo of the United States for as long as we have a elite. And the elite have been there for hundreds of years in America. They've been there for thousands of years in human history. The people, I mean, you just look at the Roman Empire. Do you think the Roman Empire was different? Do you think that there weren't the top 0.01% of people deciding, okay, here's the military campaign. We need resources to do that. Go and get soldiers, go and get spears, go and get food to pay for this war. Why do we have to go to war? Well, if we don't go to war, the people are going to accumulate their own resources and they're going to overthrow us. So this is the story of every single empire. So there's not a lot we can do about the fact that war is an ongoing thing in humanity. What is it Jesus says? He says there will always be wars and rumors of wars. Let's pull up the exact quote because I know it's a good one. Wars and rumors of wars. Matthew 24:6-13. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nations will rise against nations and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All of these are the beginning of birth pains. Hey, it doesn't get better after that, by the way. Do you want me to keep reading? I'll keep reading because you need to know that that's just the birth pains. Okay, the birth pains come before the labor, which is the ultimate pain, which is the end times. Verse 9, then you will be handed over to be persecuted and put to death, and you will be hated by all nations because of me. At that time, many will turn away from the faith and will betray and hate each other, and many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. Because of the increase in wickedness, the love of most will grow cold, but the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. Is that not just absolutely beautiful? Like, this is why you have to read the Bible, guys. Like, it just kills me that people will do everything other than read the Bible to try to understand how the world works. They'll go and spend 8 years getting an advanced degree in whatever form of science idolatry is popular right now, pharmakia, Kabbalistic mysticism. They don't know that's what it is, but that's what it is. Psychology, psychiatry, sociology. Do you not understand that these things are already here? They're already in the book that was written, the collection of books that were written thousands of years ago? That there will always be wars and rumors of wars, and that anybody who speaks out against this and accurately diagnoses what's going on, like, hold on, wait a minute. I know why you guys are doing these wars. It's not to keep us safe. It's so that you can stay in power, so that you can fulfill your sinful addiction to pride. That's all it is. Power, the lust for power. I promise you, these people with these agendas running these multi-decade long wars, they are not godly people. They're not sitting around trying to think about how to install God's kingdom here on earth. They're sitting around thinking about, how do I stay in power for as long as possible? How can I go down in the history books as the greatest conqueror of the 21st century? That's what they're trying to accomplish. Look at somebody like George Soros, somebody like Larry Fink, somebody like Bill Gates, all of the United States presidents. These people have no desire whatsoever to make sure that Christianity is the single most important priority of our country. That should be obvious to all of us. When you talk about Bill Gates trying to depopulate the earth, George Soros saying that no nation should exist, there should be no borders anywhere, Larry Fink saying he has a responsibility as a $1 trillion asset manager to force homosexuality and multiculturalism on the nations that don't want it. When you have United States presidents being okay with statues of Satan being erected in government buildings, okay with our public education system teaching children that men and women are interchangeable and that one can become the other, and that if you cut your genitals off, somehow that's going to make your life better. So Matthew 24:6, that's where we're at. We're at the stage of there's going to be wars and rumors of wars. You need to accept this. It's not going to change. It never has changed. And move on to the next stage of, okay, well, what comes after that? Once we acknowledge the fact that these wars are always going to exist and now we understand why they have to exist, what is my role now? Like, what am I supposed to do with this information?